Hi, it's Fountain here, and today I'm going to talk about self acceptance and why it's so important. I guess, easily put, I would say it's important because if you don't accept yourself, you're unlikely to live in an authentic way. You know, and having a lack of acceptance also creates a lot of feelings of like unhappiness and low confidence, and kind of perpetuates like a victim mentality. And that's not to say it's a bad thing, but if you want to create a life where you have more confidence, where you take more responsibility and accountability, and and you want to live in more happiness, then it makes kind of sense, right, to have more self-acceptance for yourself. And self-acceptance can also provide like with more clarity and more ability to progress on what it is that you're wanting to feel and do in life, and even sometimes not what you want to, but that's a whole other blog for another day. So having self-acceptance obviously is going to help with supposed challenges, right, when they come up. Like if you've got more self-compassion for all of yourself and others, it's really life-changing, if I can put it that way. And this is not about like only really accepting what you might consider the good parts of yourself, or the happy parts of yourself, or the parts that everyone else seems to like about you. It's about accepting all of yourself. So even those shadow aspects of yourself, even those parts of yourself that you're like, oh, I don't really like that, la da 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 da, or oh, my mum or my partner doesn't really like that part of me, la da. You have to accept those parts of yourself. And it's not like you have to like sit in them and play your whole life out in those shadow aspects, right? A lot of the times the shadows themselves actually just want to be kind of like loved and noticed and have compassion for. And when you have more self-acceptance for that, like, oh, I can see, why that shadow plays out, and I can feel that, and I notice where that comes from, and I'm going to nurture that and give that love, and you'll actually might notice that that shadow tends to come out less in the way that it's rearing its ugly head, if I can put it that way. You might be able to work with that more, or even be able to share things that you've learned about that with other people that might be needing guidance with that. So, when you learn a lot about your own inner world, you may find that other people will kind of be attracted to you in a way in which they are seeking maybe guidance in those aspects of themselves as well. So yeah, I digress a little bit, but that's what I mean by about self-acceptance for all of yourself, not just the rainbows, unicorns, like everything. Anyway, I guess the reasons why I wanted to share this vlog is so that I can sort of say, like, when you have self-acceptance, you're more likely to cultivate XYZ. And I guess the first one I want to point out is, self-awareness. When you've got self-acceptance of yourself and, all the parts of yourself, you start to notice things about what you feel and how you conduct yourself, internally and externally as well. You can kind of become a little bit of an observer of that. And, that's not to negate that you shouldn't feel things when they come up, even if they're a bit uncomfortable, but like learning about how to work with them and sending that love, and also noticing and how, like, okay, if I just tweak something slightly like this, how does that other person then respond to that? Oh, okay, like maybe that's something I want to continue doing, or maybe that's not something I want to continue doing. Obviously, also when you have more acceptance, you start to see the past as more like you were prepared by your past, rather than being defined by the past. Like XYZ happened to me when I was 5 years old, therefore I'm, ABC. Doesn't really have to be like that. You can start to see that of, oh, okay, I accept that that happens, and I accept that sometimes these things play out, maybe related with that, and that's okay. And that's just preparing me for maybe MNOP. Who knows? You know what I mean? It's just another way of starting to see the things that supposedly happened to you in this lifetime, and not being kind of stuck as much in a victim mentality, if that makes sense. Taking that accountability and responsibility for where you are in this moment. Understanding what happened in the past is just a preparation for whatever's supposed to happen in the future. Okay. Also, when you have more self-acceptance, you're likely to increase your worth. So you're more likely to take better care of yourself. You know, maybe that means more regular movement for you. Maybe that means drinking more water. Maybe that, simple things like that. From a reasonably privileged mindset, moving your body, drinking clean, fresh water seems simple. I understand there's many places around the world those things aren't always easy, but it's just examples, right? They're just small things of just taking care of yourself. When you accept yourself more, you're more likely to take care of yourself. When you do that, then obviously you can fill up other people's cups. Also, with more self-acceptance, you're likely to be more courageous in how you conduct yourself. You're really walking your dream, your passions, your intentions. You're really following through with that. It doesn't actually necessarily have to be the doing side of it either. It can be the being of it too. Like there's that, I understand a lot of where we sit at in this world at the moment. There's a lot of do, but there's also a lot of value in the being, and being courageous in that being. I won't go too much into the nuances of that, but we'll just leave it as courageous, and you can interpret that however you wish. Also, with self-acceptance, you start to realize more of what you can control and have responsibility for those things, right? To do with like what you do, what you feel, and then those things that are kind of outside of that, you kind of notice that's not really my responsibility as to how that has to look. It's not my responsibility to go over to the neighbors and paint their house green because you don't like the blue that they painted it. You know what I mean? Simple example, but it's not really your responsibility. Plus, you're probably encroaching on their boundaries of, like, that's kind of their space, although the perceptions of land and ownership is a whole other thing. But besides that, I'm just sharing, very somewhat simple example. Instead of like deciding that you want to control how your neighbor's house looks, how about changing your perspective on that house instead of trying to control the situations? You get what I mean? It's more about you control what you can and you take responsibility for what's yours, and anything outside that, you either learn to accept that through changing your perspective, so working through your belief systems, your stories, your programming and whatnot. And I guess the last thing to remember is just to be kind to yourself. Obviously, self-acceptance is important. Obviously, there's going to be times where you notice that you're not really accepting yourself, and that sometimes may show up in the external world first. You might get reflections of that coming at you from people and places. And then noticing like, oh, this is happening because I'm not actually really accepting me for who I am. And you may find that obviously when you start accepting more of yourself, you start accepting other people for others, what's other, but start accepting them as well. And that doesn't mean like, you're going to be friends with everybody, or you're going to be in a relationship with everybody, or you're going to, work with everybody. It's just accepting like, oh, yeah. Like, especially when it's like, oh, my shadow's noticing their shadow right now, and wow, it's an interesting kind of interaction that's going on, and maybe I just need to love more of that part of myself instead of like reacting back at their shadow because we were triggering each other at this point in time. If that makes sense. So yeah, if you've got some perspectives that you want to share around self-acceptance, more than welcome to leave that in the comment section down below. And I'm also on a couple of different social media platforms. You're welcome to communicate with me in there if you want to ask me some questions, maybe about this vlog, or if you've got some vlog requests. you're also welcome to leave that there, and I will see you in the next vlog.